Functions given roots. All right, so I'm going to give you some information after I unfreeze the screen to put down the middle between 1 and 2. If you have a root of, I'm going to say A, then the factor that would be from the polynomial equation is x minus A, and I like to use parentheses. So this is like a main idea we're going to look at today. To write a polynomial function given its roots. And there's actually an infinite number of possible answers for each of these, so we're going to talk about that too. There's like a very basic answer, and then you can get fancy and add stuff to your answer. So I want to make sure we talk about this. All right, so first of all, I'm going to make a function. I'm going to call my function f of x. You could call it g of x or something else. I just like f for function. And they're giving us 3 real whole number roots, which is nice to start off with. So if I have 5, I'm going to have x minus 5 when I put it into the factor. So think about how we solve by factoring, how those are related. If this is positive, that's going to have a minus, and that's just the relationship between the roots and the factors. If I have 1, I'm going to have x minus 1. And if I have 4, I'm going to have x minus 4. So this is the function in factored form, but we hardly ever see them this way. So what we're going to do is multiply this out. No, there is not a shortcut for that. So we're going to start by using the FOIL method to just multiply these first 2 groups together. So x times x is x squared. X times negative 1 is minus x. Negative 5 times x is negative 5x. Negative 5 times negative 1 is plus 5. And I'm just going to rewrite that out, combining these like terms. So x squared minus 6x plus 5. And I'm going to put some parentheses on that. Then I still have x minus 4. So what we're going to do is we're going to distribute everything from here over here. And it's a little messy to write it all out. We can try. So I'm going to take x squared times x, which is x to the 3rd. X squared times minus 4 is minus 4x squared. So I took the x squared and distributed it to both of those, so I'm done with x squared. Then I can go to negative 6x, take it, times x. So negative 6x squared. Negative 6x times negative 4 would be plus 24x. And then I'm going to take 5 times everything over there. So 5 times x is plus 5x. And 5 times negative 4 is negative 20. So just multiplying and making sure we have the right powers. And then you want to simplify this down. These are like terms. These are like terms. So we get x cubed minus 10x squared plus 29x minus 20. There's a lot of places in there you could make mistakes. So you want to be careful. So this is a possible answer. This is one possible answer. That is one function. Actually, what I need to do for function is to keep my f of x on there. So let me go back and do that. Find something with an eraser that actually works. There we go. So yes, this is f of x equals... mostly you're just setting up the factors and doing a lot of multiplying. It's nothing super complicated. You just have to keep track of where you're at and what you're doing. Okay, so that's one possible answer. Now there's an infinite number of answers. This is the most reduced. I could multiply that function through by any constant. So I could take everything in that function times 2, for example. I'll call it something else. I'll call it g of x. So another possible function would be 2x cubed. I could take negative 10 times 2, so minus 20x squared. Take 29 times 2, I get 58x. 20 times 2, and get 40. And that would be
what's the point of that?
Another possible answer.
Yeah. What's the point of anything?
So in general,
Can't you
this just makes the function steeper. All of the peaks and valleys are a little bit steeper, but it's still crossing the x-axis in the same places. And so I could put a negative, I could switch all the signs, I could multiply through by other numbers. For what you're going to do on today's assignment, you can just do this.
And it'll be the same.
If you switch all of the signs, what will happen is the function will switch. It'll be inverted, but it will still go through the x-axis in the same place. Yes.
Okay.
So basically, as long as you start with this as your basic function, you could make a lot of other functions out of it that have the same roots, but would look a little different. It might be steeper, it might be less steep, and it could be inverted, it could be flipped over. All right, but we're mostly going to focus on just getting this one basic function for today. I'm just letting you know there are others out there. And when I taught college algebra, on a lot of their assignments, they had to write 3 functions that had those roots, and this is how we came up with the others. Was you had to multiply through by something, or you would multiply through by a -1 and change the signs. You still get the same roots. Okay, sort of a side note. Let's look at number 2. So we're first going to start off by setting up our function. Let's call this one h of x. It doesn't really matter, but to be a function, you have to have this side of the equation. And then when we do our factors, you're going to change the signs. So if it's +4, I'm going to do x minus 4. If I have -2, I'm going to do x plus 2. If I have 3, I'm going to do x minus 3. So that's in factored form. What we really want, though, is to write it as a polynomial function. I accidentally cut the directions off, but it says we're going to write a polynomial function of least degree with integral coefficients that has the given zeros, which means we're going to do this one basic function that's a polynomial that meets the criteria set out, and these are my roots. All right, so we are going to multiply these out first. So let's just do FOIL. So x times x is x squared. X times 2 is 2x. -4 times x is -4x. And -4 times 2 is -8. So if I simplify that down, combine like terms, and put it back in parentheses, I will have x squared minus 2x minus 8. And then I still need to multiply that by x minus 3. All right, so I'm going to take x squared and multiply it by both of these. So I'm going to take x squared times x. What do we get?
X to the cube.
X cubed, good. X squared times minus 3 is minus 3x squared. -2x times x is -2x squared. -2x times -3 is plus 6x. -8 times x is -8x. -8 times -3 is positive 24. So now that we've multiplied all that out, we're going to combine like terms to make this just a little nicer to look at. So we're going to have h of x on one side. You have to have the function notation in some form. We'll have x cubed minus 5x squared minus 2x plus 24. Alright, so this is the polynomial function of least degree with integral coefficients that has the given zeros at the top. So basically we're setting up the factors, we're multiplying it out. Now we're going to see what happens when your roots are fractions. And there's a 0, which is also going to make this a little exciting. So,
the whole thing 0. Boom, solved.
It's not. That's a root. That's not the answer.
Multiply by 0.
You're not. Okay, so we're going to start off by doing this. Actually, I'm going to start by making the factors.
Do you just make it x?
So we're going to have x. If I have minus 4/5, you're subtracting a negative, and make that plus 4/5. X minus 0 and x minus 1/4. Now, we are not allowed, it says we have to have integral coefficients, meaning integers. We're not allowed to have fractions in here. So we're going to do part of our factoring thing where we bottoms up. You're going to take the denominator and move it up. We're going to make this 5x plus 4. This is just going to be x.
Whoa.
And then we're going to bottoms up this fraction and make it 4x minus 1, which we talked about when we were doing factoring.
How are you allowed to do that? Doesn't that change everything?
Bottoms up.
No.
Dude, it's math.
Pull up.
So if I were to set 4x minus 1 equals 0 and solve it. You add 1, so you get 4x equals 1, divide by 4, you get 1/4. So what you're doing is you're just changing it into a form that's a polynomial that doesn't have fractions. All right, so the distributing isn't so bad this time. We're just going to distribute x to both of these and make it 5x squared plus 4x. And then we'll go ahead and do FOIL method to multiply that by 4x minus 1. So let's do that. 5x squared times 4x is 20x cubed. 5x squared times negative 1 is negative 5x squared. 4x times 4x is plus 16x squared. And 4x times negative 1 is negative 4x. And then we combine like terms and write our final answer. So we've got to name this function. I didn't do that at the beginning. We'll just call it f of x equals, here's our like terms, so 20x cubed plus 11x squared minus 4x is the simplest answer we can come up with integral coefficients.